Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm going to take a shot of this medieval chapel here, and I'll be turning it into black and white.
But first, guys, let me ask you something. Are you still struggling with the black and white images, trying to get it to a higher level, but always end up with flat and boring photos? Well, tag along with me, guys, and I'll show you my number one tool on how to fix that problem. And it will also boost your images to a much higher professional level. I'll be using my Fujifilm X-T4 to take this shot, and I'll be taking it handheld. I have no need for a tripod since the clouds are already a bit streaky. Well, thank you guys for joining me on location here. We'll head back to the studio and we'll begin our editing process from color to black and white. Bear with me and I'll show you these amazing tools you can use to boost your images to a much higher level. Thank you, and I'll see you all back in the studio. Well, here we are, everyone, in Adobe Camera Raw. This is the chapel, the medieval chapel we'll be editing today. As I mentioned in the intro, we had no need to make a long exposure shot out of this image since the clouds were already a bit streaky and I liked them how they were. So the first thing we're going to start off with is turning the profile to Adobe Landscape, where we get much more color in the image. It's already a fantastic image how it is in color. I haven't done any editing to it yet and it's already quite good. And here, like usual, we're going to start off with the exposure panel. I'll be reducing the highlights all the way, increase the shadows. I think I'm going to increase them all the way as well. Now I'm going to increase the whites, and I'm going to press down the Alt key on the keyboard at the same time and move the white slider until I see white on the screen, on the black screen here. I'll do the same for the blacks as well. I'm going to move it to the left side until I see black on the white screen. And there we have our image ready from the exposure panel. I'm going to increase just a bit of contrast. And there we have a fantastic image. My aim is, like usual in my other tutorials, I always boost the color as much as I can. The next thing I'm going to do is head down to the calibration. I'm going to increase the blue primary saturation to around there. Don't worry, we'll be turning it to black and white. That's what we need for a fantastic black and white image. I'm going to try the green primary as well. And I'm going to increase the red primary also. It's way too saturated, and that's how I want it before turning it into black and white. Next, I'm going to head over to the effects panel. I'm going to increase the texture to around 15, increase the clarity also. As you can see, the image is becoming quite sickly looking, don't worry. And I'm going to increase the dehaze to around there. Very quickly go down to the detail. I'm going to increase the sharpening to around 50. I always reduce the radius and increase the detail all the way up. Move the masking slider, but hold down the Alt key at the same time, and you'll be increasing the sharpening just on the white parts of the image, as we don't need sharpening in the clouds. And there we have our image ready to be turned into black and white, which we'll be doing in Photoshop. I'm going to press on the open here. So now we'll open up in Photoshop, guys. I'm turning it to black and white now. And I'll also be showing you that tool I told you that will increase your black and white images and get rid of that dull, flat, boring look. and even a lifeless look. First, I'm going to head over to the adjustments layer here, and I'm going to press on the black and white. And there's our black and white image. I'm going to play around with the sliders a bit. This is why we increase all the colors in the image, so we get more accurate detail where we want in each color. Double click to go back to your original setting, and here I think I'm going to decrease it, the red, to about there. I'm going to try the yellow. It's affecting the trees and the image, the middle part of the image. And I think I'm going to decrease it also. I'm going to try the greens. And this time I think I'm going to increase the greens on the right, to the right side. Always subtle movements, guys. Try the cyan. It's affecting the sky. And I'm going to decrease it to the left. Try the blues. I'm sure it's going to affect the sky as well. Don't go too much, because then you get this weird effect. That's why I said always subtle movements. And I'm going to decrease it to around there. I'm going to show you the before and after by pressing on this eyeball here with the arrow. And I'm going to close this panel. Next, I'm going to head back down to the adjustments layer, and I'm going to click on the gradient map. And this is where we'll be turning it into a fantastic black and white image. If your panel here says smooth, click on the drop down window and click on classic. And there we have a much more natural black and white image. And I'm going to flatten these layers here, and I'm going to take it back over to Camera Raw. And we'll soon be using that special tool to increase your black and white images. But we're going to take it back to Camera Raw first. And I'm going to press Camera Raw filter. I'm going to use these tools once more. We're in Camera Raw again, or if you're using Lightroom, just the same. I'm going to reduce the highlights once again to get more detail in the sky. I'm going to boost the shadows as well. And this is the only panel when I come back into that I use when I come back into Camera Raw. I have no need to touch the other panels. And that's another reason why I do not use a smart object. So I can reuse this panel once again. Should be okay. Try the blacks. No, I'll leave it how they were. And here we're going to head over to the masking. We haven't come to that special tool yet, guys. So bear with me, because that tool we'll be using it nearly at the end of the video, at the tutorial. And here, like before in my other tutorials, I use the linear gradient first. And I'll be using it over the sky. I'm going to go all the way down, halfway down, and I'm going to intersect this linear gradient by pressing on these three dots, and I'm going to intersect it with the sky, so the mask will be removed from the tree and the top of the chapel here. Let it do its work. And here I'm going to decrease Where did they go? I'm gonna decrease the exposure to around there. I'm going to use another linear gradient, but I'm going to place it over the right side of the image to balance out the top part. And I'm going to decrease the exposure to around there. By using these masking, guys, you'll be increasing your chances of creating a higher level black and white image. I'm going to use another linear gradient for the foreground. And I'm going to reduce the exposure also. And we always want to draw the viewer's eye to the center of the image where the main part, the subject of the image will be. And by doing that, and by reducing the exposure on the top part and the bottom part, we'll be drawing the eye naturally to the center of the image. And I'm going to use another masking tool, and I'll be using a radial gradient. And I'm going to place it over the part of the tree here. And like this, we'll be doing dodging and burning also. I'm going to increase the radial gradient a bit more. I had lots of comments, guys, telling me that by using all this masking, you're faking the image. But if you're shooting in RAW with your camera, you have to do these editing parts because you're just going to get that dull flat look. I'm going to use another radial gradient, and I'm going to put it over this part of the tree. Turn it around a bit and increase the exposure also. I'm going to use another radial gradient for this part of the tree now. Turn it around a bit and increase the exposure also. One more radial gradient for the tree, or for this bush here. And here I'll be increasing the exposure just like that. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to head out of the masking. I'm going to increase the image size because I want to do some masking on the chapel here. And there should be okay about that. I'm going to head back to the masking, and here I'll be using a brush. And now we're going to create some contrast in the chapel. I'm going to reduce the mask here, the mask size. Make sure the feathering is 100 and the flow 100, and density is 100 also. And I'm going to go over the outside of the chapel here. On the outlining of the chapel. I'm going to subtract with a brush here because I went over here. I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to remove here also because I just want to target the outer part. And that should be okay. I'm going to increase the exposure for this mask to around there. Back it down a bit. And I'm going to do another brush, and I'm going to go over this part of the chapel also. I'll be removing where I don't want it with the brush, with the subtract brush. I'm going to remove it now, the subtract with the brush, where I don't want the mask. Always pay attention to where your shadows are, and I'll be removing it from the shadow here. And you'll see why in just a few seconds. You don't have to be precise. And here I'm going to increase the exposure also to around there. And now I'm going to use another brush. This part of the editing is important, and you'll see why in a few seconds. And I'm going to go over the shadow part of the chapel. And I'm going to go over here as well, onto the door frame, and even the door itself, but just on the shadow part of the door. I'm going to use a subtract brush, and I'm going to remove from here. And that should be okay from here. And now here I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to decrease the exposure. And the next thing I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go down to these steps here, and I'll be decreasing the exposure also here. And we'll be creating a 3D look in this image. Next, I'm going to use another brush by pressing K on the keyboard, or by using it, creating a new mask here. And here I'm going to target part of the rocks here. But first I'm going to decrease the exposure. And we'll be doing some dodging and burning here. On the grasses here as well. Removing the image. That should be okay. On this side here, I'm dodging and burning, and I'm doing the burning part. And that should be okay. I'm going to use another brush for the tree. And I'm going to go just on the outer part of the tree here. I'm going to subtract a bit with the brush. And here I'm going to increase the exposure. just a bit like that. I'm going to head out of the masking, guys. I'm going to reduce the image size. We're already getting a better black and white image. A bit of patience is all you need. And I'm going to go back to the masking, and I'm going to work a bit on the sky now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the luminance range mask, and I'm going to target these white clouds here. And I'm going to subtract where I don't want the mask with the brush. And I'm going to remove it from the chapel here. And the stairs also. Here as well, and here as well. Because I just want the sky. And I'm going to remove from here as well, guys. And here we just targeted the sky. And here I'm going to increase the exposure. To around there. I'm going to use another luminance range mask. And I'm going to target the other part of the clouds here. To around there. I'm going to subtract with a brush as well. But I'm going to leave it how it is there. I just removed the mask from the chapel. And here I'm going to increase the exposure and see what happens. And that should be okay. Just a touch like that. But now I'm going to head back to one of my previous masks from the beginning. And I'm going to decrease the exposure just a bit more here. And that should be alright. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a radial gradient. And I'm going to place it where we had the direction of the sun, which was somewhere here. I'm going to open it up a bit more. And I'm going to increase the exposure just a bit like that. And I'm going to go down to the dehaze and reduce the dehaze slider. That should be okay. One more radial gradient, everyone. I'm going to place it exactly where I had the previous radial gradient. And here we'll be creating a natural vignette. Don't forget to invert the mask, everyone, and reduce the exposure. And that should be fine. Now here we come to the part where I told you about that special tool where you can increase to boost your image to a higher level and get rid of that dull, flat, boring look. The image looks fine, but I'm going to show you that special tool, but we have to go back into Photoshop. Click OK, and it's going to take us to Photoshop. You can see the before, and that's the after. Now just head down to the adjustments layer here, and that special tool which you should practice using, everyone, is the curve tool. Don't scare away from it. You don't need to use here if you don't want to. I know you have to click here and make an S-curve, but just go up to the default here and click on the linear contrast, and it will give you an automatic S shape. And here what I usually do, I usually just click on where the dot is, where it was done automatically, and I raise the blacks by using the up arrow, then 4 arrows on your keyboard, and I use the up arrow and increase the blacks to about where they were. And if you want, you can increase the same with the whites or highlights and raise it even more if you wish. I'm gonna go back down a bit more with the blacks, and I'm gonna head out of here. I'm gonna show you the before and after without the curve tool. You see, that looks a bit flat, and now you've brightened it up and created a much better black and white image. Well, there we have it, guys. If you want, I'm going to show you how to create a a frame for your image here quite quickly, since we're already in Photoshop. It's an extra bonus. Just head over, but first you have to duplicate your background image, drag it down to the plus sign, let go. We created the background copy, and now we're going to head over to image, click on canvas size, change it from pixels to centimeter or inches, whatever you wish, and I'm going to increase, instead of 0, I'm going to do the width to 9 centimeters and the height to 9 centimeters also. And there we have the frame. If you wish to do a drop shadow, you're going to get like a floating image. Just click down to the right corner on FX and click on drop shadow, which will open up another window, and it's giving you a drop shadow by yourself. I like the drop shadow on the right side, so I just turn the angle with my mouse and leave it on around 130, 135, something like that. And there we have our final image, everyone. I hope you like it. Well, I hope you get better luck with your black and white images, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the editing tutorial. I'm sure it's going to increase your black and white photos. Well, thank you guys. Happy editing. And please hit the subscribe button, a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you in another video.